Morning, everyone. I guess it's afternoon already. I should probably start with introducing all the dignitaries in the room. So, can you join me with the single clap rule? Actually, I'm not going to, but I do have to point out one that was missed. Carolyn McCauley's here. She does serve as the chair of Alberta Recycling, but she's also the mayor of Vermilion, so thank you for attending too. And as was mentioned in my introduction, thank you for that, Mark. My family is important to me, and they actually are joining me here today. My mom and my dad, Joe and Denise, are here, and my son's like, oh no. And my son Will and my daughter Holly are here. So, thank you once again for joining me at the annual State of the City. It's also important to me that I have so many of my mayor colleagues in attendance, as well as councillor colleagues from the region. It's always nice to have that kind of support in a room when you're speaking to such a large group. I also wanted to thank both Karen Witchak, CEO of the Edmonton Metro Region Board, and Malcolm Bruce of Edmonton Global for attending. They were not introduced, but I think they need to be, because the regional work that we are doing is a huge priority for me and a key to the success of our city. And of course, I need to give another shout out to my council colleagues. The past 2 years, we have proven that it is possible to work collaboratively, respectfully, while still bringing different opinions and ideas to the table. We have been open to new ideas, and we work very well together, and I think we've accomplished a fair amount. Councillor Wes Broadhead is not able to join us and sends his regrets. He's actually in Fort McMurray representing St. Albert at the Oil Sands Conference. We felt that was important. I want to begin by respectfully acknowledging that we are on Treaty 6 territory, traditional lands of the First Nation and Métis people. As treaty people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, we share the responsibility for stewardship of this beautiful land. I'm reading that, even though it was already read earlier today, because this is a new land acknowledgement for the city, and it's been a product of the 2019 Pehonan Reconciliation Initiative. The Pehonan report was actually presented to Council just on Monday at a committee meeting. It contains many great recommendations as we continue the journey towards reconciliation in our community. I need to thank the Chamber of Commerce for once again inviting me to speak. Last year was my very first State of the City, and I wanted to focus on the new way Council was working together and doing its business. Positive relationships in the city, region, and province aligns with my plan to focus on the future to ensure St. Albert flourishes as a great city that we all know and come to love. And of course, we're not alone in believing St. Albert is a great place to live. In July, Maclean's magazine ranked the city of St. Albert as the best city in Alberta. This ranking is something we want to maintain, and I'm confident we can by continuing to work together. When the St. Albert Gazette wrote about my address last year, they called it an ode to optimism. Although the paper was looking for more details in my speech, I am pleased our local paper understood my primary message, that by working together in new ways with a spirit of optimism, we could do great things together as a council. Because this council has embraced this culture of optimism, collaboration, and mutual respect, we have been able to achieve what many thought was unachievable. This past year, we approved a municipal tax increase of 0.9%, which is lower than inflation. We tackled the inflated municipal growth budget and reduced it by almost $128 million. We took a hard look at the long-term capital plan, removing projects that were antiquated and did not align with our strategic plans for the future, and we aren't done yet. Of course, one of the biggest achievements in 2019 was the unique partnership we reached with the Government of Alberta for the expansion of Ray Gibbon Drive. Not only will this significantly alleviate traffic across the entire city, Ray Gibbon Drive will help diversify the economy, spur development, and create jobs critical to our shared economic success and our ongoing partnership with the province. Council approved a complete streets design standards. This means all new developments will accommodate everyone, whether you walk, bike, use transit, or drive. Our new neighborhoods will be safe and welcoming to all people of all ages and abilities. We are updating our land use bylaw to enable permanent supportive housing, and we're working on additional updates to enable front-back condos. so we can increase options for builders and buyers. Council moved ahead with the expropriation of land in Kingswood. This is a piece of land designated in the area structure plan as a park and a school site for over 20 years, but is not being provided to the city as is required. Although not the most favorable way to provide this neighborhood with long overdue amenities, Council made the tough decision to take control of this land. We completed installation of advanced water meters that support water conservation and provides detailed usage of the information on usage. Council heard residents' requests for monthly utility billing, and on July 1st, we moved to a monthly e-billing. The e-billing will save the city over $100,000 a year. So I hope everyone is signed up for e-billing. We formed a seniors advisory committee. We did update our smoking bylaw to further restrict public consumption. We're changing oversight in our public art committee. We introduced separate memberships for walking track at Service Place. And St. Albert is the first city in Alberta to bring forward intentions to ban conversion therapy. This is just a small list and a sample of the accomplishments we have achieved and are proud of over the last 12 months. Thank you once again to my council for your hard work. And a special thanks to Kevin Scoble and his staff for pushing these initiatives forward. I receive hundreds of emails and social media commentary about the city's various programs, services, and facilities. Stakeholders know that Council has more on our capital plan than we can afford. They make passionate arguments about why their favorite program or service is more valuable or worthy of funding than others are. For example, someone might advocate for additional funding for public art, while also arguing against the use of those funds for an ice rink. A third group of residents would rather we spend money on neither. Residents are asking for more roads, better roads, animal shelters, more parks, skating rinks, pickleball courts, swimming pools, skateboard parks, bike paths, better transit, and the list goes on. For me, the question we are debating shouldn't be whether public art is more valuable than sports and recreation facilities. The real underlying question is why can't we afford both? The challenge is that we are limited by our existing funding model, where the city relies on property taxes for much of its budget. How can we flourish when we are handcuffed by a 17th century taxation model that limits our capacity to raise revenue and fund our city? It's quite honestly medieval. Historically, the property tax system did work. In 1867, at the time of Canadian Constitution, cities in Canada were small, isolated, focused largely on their immediate surroundings, and providing minimal services. But much has changed in the landscape of Canadian local government since then. Modern cities are responsible for delivering a much wider range of services, many of which involve costly expenditures to build, maintain, and deliver programs. Recreation, supportive and achievable housing, arts and culture, mental health, and the opioid crisis are challenges our founding fathers could never have imagined. I suspect when John A. Macdonald became our first Prime Minister, high-speed internet to every door was not on his radar. In fact, radar wasn't on his radar. We need a funding model that gives flight to our dreams rather than holds them down. So while I'm wearing the chain of office that my mayor forebears with the names of all the predecessors, every mayor of St. Alberta is on my chain of office, way back to Mayor Hebert. I'm not dealing with the same issues that they dealt with. The issues of today are much more complex. We are facing urbanization, with Canada being one of the most urbanized countries in the world. Urbanization is the new norm for Canada. The shift to living and playing close to your work increases the densification and with it brings new pressures. New pressures are also arising from climate change, and St. Albert has started creating resiliency strategies. These new and complex areas of service require us to adopt new approaches and a new way of thinking. One example of how we think in new ways is our continued commitment to a smart city. Our Smart City Master Plan was recently ranked the best in Canada and third best in the world, only after London and Vienna. This speech is a bit of a bragging speech, but we're proud. Sorry, my smart city guys over there. Some of the things that worked for us in the past are no longer working. For example, our recycling program was extremely successful in 2012. We actually achieved a 65% diversion out of landfill, one of the best in the province, and we held this until 2018. Then global markets changed. Fewer countries accepted our recyclables, and we discovered that much of our recycling had been contaminated and ended up in a landfill. Rather than solving our own waste problem, we were just shifting our waste problem to another part of the world. We had to face the hard truth that we could not continue business as usual, and we had to adapt our recycling program to the new reality. Glass was breaking in our blue bags, which contaminated the whole bag and meant everything had to go to landfill. Rather than taking the easy way out, we changed. We stopped collecting glass in the blue bags, but committed to continue accepting glass in our recycling depot. From November 2018 to June of 19, we collected over 25 metric tons of glass, which is being reused in sandblasting operations. Hearing the calls of our environmentally concerned residents, the city also started a pilot project to recycle styrofoam. This program just started in July of 19, and we're going to continue to evaluate its potential. We are pushing the provincial government to legislate extended producer responsibility, or EPR. EPR is an environmental policy approach in which producers' responsibility for a product is extended to the post-consumer stage of a product's life cycle. This would shift the financial burden of recycling programs from municipalities to companies who would then be responsible for the end of life of their products and all the packaging that they use. We are partnering with the AUMA, that's the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, the City of Calgary, and other municipalities to support a study on creating a provincial approach for extended producer responsibility. I've been selected to sit on a governance committee as we move forward with an approach that will standardize programs across Alberta. Alberta's recycling sector generated $700 million in economic value in 2018. As well as supporting over 7,500 direct jobs. That's a lot of Albertans heating their homes and feeding their families. And ladies and gentlemen, those are only 2018 numbers. The impact of the meltdown in global markets hit Alberta in 19. This is an opportunity for an innovative municipality, such as ours, to create a lot of jobs for its residents. In case you're unaware, traffic is another challenge we face in our city. As we and those around us continue to grow, more people will travel on our roads. So until the Star Trek transporter is built, we need to find out how to keep that traffic flowing, both for residents and our commerce. St. Albert Trail was never designed to serve a city of 67,000, and nor was it built to serve as a commercial thoroughfare for the region. We have to work with what we have. This means widening St. Albert Trail and improving key intersections, starting with the worst, the one at Boudreau and Giroux. Over the next 3 years, we will widen St. Albert Trail all the way to our northern boundary. Yet widening roads isn't enough. Intelligent transportation systems are being deployed to help fight congestion. By the end of 2019, approximately 80% of our signalized intersections will be connected to the city's fiber network. The city is also in the process of testing different technologies to deliver adaptive traffic signal controls, where intersections and corridors will be more responsive to actual real-time demands. We have installed these along St. Albert Trail and also Boudreau. We are monitoring and we've seen the improvements and are getting comments from residents that they are seeing the improvements as well. As the city continues to grow, greater traffic volume is not the only thing we need to address. We must consider where growth will take place, what type of growth will happen, and what that growth will look like. As a council, we recognize the need for St. Albert's growth to align with our 50-year community vision, which was developed with over 6,000 residents providing input in 2014 and 15. That's why Flourish, our new municipal development plan, is based on our community vision. As St. Albert continues to grow, we need land to support residential growth and non-residential growth. While it would be inappropriate to share the details of our negotiations with Sturgeon County, I can say they are making good progress, and I'm thankful that we work well with our neighbors and our colleagues. The negotiations for annexation are on track to be submitted to the province by the end of next year. Our new municipal development plan, Flourish, is also guided by the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Growth Plan. It will focus on reducing our urban sprawl, preserving prime agriculture land, and guide us for the next 30 years. It involves a tremendous amount of public consultation, and I'm thankful that the Chamber has been so deeply involved. We currently have an 80-20 split for our property tax revenue. This means that 80% of our taxes are derived from residents, while 20% is derived from the non-residential sources, including industry and businesses. This continues to improve, but we want to advance it further. Because I'm speaking to the Chamber of Commerce, I want to make it abundantly clear. Our solution is not to have existing businesses pay more. Rather, is it for us to attract more businesses to St. Albert who can share in the non-residential contribution. We have one of the lowest business property tax rates in the region, and we want to maintain that. We also want to reduce the cost to companies that create jobs through our Green Tape 2.0 initiative. We are in an era where the Chamber and the City work very closely to address hindrances to businesses. The City is providing the competitive analysis to the Chamber and the Economic Sustainability Advisory Board. This benchmarking of the City's processes and timelines is underway and will be vetted by a subgroup of local builders and developers. Recently in the news, development permits and building permits in Edmonton were highlighted as taking over 40 days. Leduc was interviewed and had an impressive guarantee of 14 days turnaround. That inspired me to ask Mr. Scoble and check what St. Albert's permit rates are. Development permits in St. Albert are averaging 6 calendar days, while single-family residential permits are usually issued within 5 business days, and a business license in St. Albert is issued within 1 business day. We're very proud of that, and we just don't brag much about it. We're working with local members of the Urban Development Institute to jointly propose opportunities to streamline turnaround times on EMRB applications. Now, at this point in any mayor's speech, it's time to throw down the words, drop the words, we are open for business. But what does that really mean? In St. Albert, I can tell you it means low business taxes. Development permits take less than a week. We have an educated workforce and a member-driven Chamber of Commerce. We have moved well past the marketing buzzwords and are eager to partner with you so we can all thrive side by side. Thanks, Mark. As I mentioned earlier, last year, the combined municipal property tax increase was held to 0.9%. This puts us in good company province-wide, as only 3 cities had lower property increases than St. Albert. The city continues to hold its property tax increase to levels below the municipal price index, which is our version of the consumer price index, or city's inflation. This means the city has succeeded in continually finding efficiencies in its operations, so it can purchase more costly goods and services at prices that have increased at a rate higher than our own property tax increases. So although a dollar doesn't go as far as it did 10 years ago, we are still providing the same level of service on fewer relative dollars. St. Albert has consistently kept our per capita expenses lower than similar mid-sized cities in Alberta, including Grand Prairie, Lethbridge, and Red Deer. I do believe Spruce Grove and Airdrie are a little bit better than us, and I will see their mayors later today, and we'll have to have a conversation. Where was I? The city has traditionally been and continues to be fiscally prudent, both in terms of our operational costs and our debt structure. Most of the things we value about St. Albert require an appropriate level of support from residents, from the city staff, and from council. Some of this support comes in how we interact with one another and how we treat our natural and built environments. However, they require resources, our time, our attention, and our funding. When people hear the word sustainability, they usually think of the environment. This is an important part of sustainability, but the term is much more complex. I like to think of sustainability as threefold. It has social, economic, and environmental characteristics. It comes from the concept of the triple bottom line. Everything we do should benefit us in three ways: socially, environmentally, and economically. If we can achieve sustainability in these three areas of people, planet, and profit, we can preserve the St. Albert of today for future generations. How exactly are we going to do that? Currently, we have control over a limited number of revenue streams. We face a funding gap between what we need or want and the money we have available. Last year, Council had to prioritize the items on our 10-year capital plan because it was woefully underfunded. We are an early adopter of the priority-based business planning and budgeting system, so we can ensure that we are funding those programs, services, and initiatives we place the highest importance on. After we looked at limiting our capital expenditures and controlling our costs, the only other option to address was revenue streams. Traditionally, St. Albert, like all municipalities, has been dependent on provincial and federal grants to fund our capital plans for utilities, growth, and to repair, maintain, and replace infrastructure. Although we are always grateful for these grants, we need to move away from our dependency on them. We have reached a point where our utility infrastructure is self-sustaining, providing sufficient funds to maintain as well as replace and build new, all using our utility rates and no government grants. Our municipal infrastructure requires attention as well. Council made a tough decision recently and approved a capital contribution levy of 1.5% for the next 3 years to address the funding gap in our repair, maintain, and replace budget. It's abundantly clear that the province will not be able to help us as they have in the past. The McKinnon report points to the uncomfortable reality that we have to pay for maintenance and upkeep of our city ourselves. We have a very small box of tools we can use to generate revenues: property taxes, fines, and fees. These are within our control, but do we really want to increase them? We also receive grants from the province and federal government, but these are not in our control and they're not reliable, so do we want to be relying on them? If our grants are uncertain and declining, if we don't want to increase utility rates or property taxes, if we don't want to raise fees and fines, what is left for us to do? We need to think outside the box. We need to harness a brave and confident spirit and tap into the ingenuity and creativity we are developing innovative solutions to the challenges faced today. We can explore different ways to slice the pie, to shuffle money around, or we can look at expanding the pie. Everyone likes a bigger pie. By adding new revenue streams. If we can find new revenue streams, new ways to protect the environment, and new ways to sustain our high quality of life, why wouldn't we pursue them? If we are bold, take calculated risks, and seize the opportunities before us, we can position St. Albert as a leader, not just regionally, provincially, or nationally, but internationally. We're actively researching the possibility offered by a municipal utility corporation. Some critics point to the experience of Chestermere, which introduced an unsuccessful utility corporation. I have spoken with the former mayor of Chestermere, the current mayor of Chestermere, and the senior staff, and I have learned from the mistakes they have, and I have read the report and the recommendations on how they could have made that corporation succeed. It is important to note that other cities have had great success with their utility corporations. For example, Grand Prairie has Aquaterra, we've got Medicine Hat, Calgary, and Edmonton. We are also having discussions with all of them to learn about how they have succeeded. I said earlier, I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist. We're not going to blindly stumble into the future hoping for the best. We're doing our homework. I gotta stop. You can't really see the picture. We just took it on Monday because we needed a picture of us doing our homework. Those of you who know Mr. Scoble, you don't see him smile very much, but this picture, he's laughing away, so good picture. You guys haven't even seen it yet. So we're doing our homework. We're undertaking and seeking third-party advice to ensure we make wise choices. We have brought in Grant Thornton, an independent management consulting firm, to come up with a business plan for this potential utility corporation. The concept is about other lines of services. Years ago, it was suggested by a third-party consultant to develop a municipal utility corp and charge more than cost recovery for traditional lines of services, such as water, wastewater, storm, and solid waste. We're not interested in overcharging residents and businesses for their current utilities. We want new utility services and offer those ones for a profit. The utility corp is not predicated on waste to energy as has been suggested, but waste to energy is a great example of a potential new line of service. Waste to energy is being considered for integration with other technologies such as wastewater treatment, more commonly and less pleasantly known as sewage, and district energy to both realize efficiencies and to capture more value than utilizing these technologies individually and in isolation. But it is also not only about big projects and new technologies, it's about finding new sources of revenue in any size to provide more value to ratepayers, such as consulting, operations and maintenance services for private sector, and of course green energy. We have issued a request for proposal to develop a small-scale waste-to-energy pilot. The pilot is purposeful and calculated to be cooperative, and it utilizes a business incubator model to support the growth of the private sector. So the private sector technology provider has an opportunity to demonstrate their technology as a step in commercializing it, and the city has an opportunity to understand the logistics, cost, and performance without incurring the risks and sinking any capital. This pilot project is not just a pilot project on waste to energy, it's a demonstration of how St. Albert will work with innovative private industry to showcase and demonstrate their technologies without taxpayers being on the hook for the cost. As I said earlier, we have shown leadership in new waste reduction, reuse, and recycling opportunities, and we want to show some leadership in waste recovery opportunities as well. Our overall waste minimization strategy considers all of the R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, and recovery. This is consistent with the current strategies of larger centers such as Vancouver, who has been undertaking waste to energy since the late 1980s. We have been pleased with the response received from a number of significant stakeholders we are currently working with, but the invite remains open to anyone else who wants to join. This is truly a more the merrier initiative. We will ask tough questions. We will identify new revenue streams. Will it attract new business? Will it reduce our over-reliance on residential taxes? Will it reduce the burden on existing businesses by adding new businesses? Will it reduce the waste going to landfill? Will it protect our water, air, and land? Will it preserve the high quality of life we enjoy in this remarkable community? These are the questions we are asking. We're asking ourselves, our consultants, and our partners. These are the questions that need to be answered before we decide on next steps. If the project makes financial sense, environmental sense, and offers social benefit, then only then will council consider moving forward. Change is difficult for everyone. It's also a little scary. My job as mayor is to identify the essential changes we need to make to ensure they cause minimal disruption and provide maximum benefit, and help us to not only survive, but thrive into the future. We have ambitious goals for our future, and why shouldn't we? We're in terrific financial shape, have forward-thinking residents and businesses, a dynamic community that wants to preserve the great quality of life we enjoy today, and build an even better future for the next generation. We have one of the most educated workforces in North America, a low business property tax rate, an excellent fiber optic and broadband network, and a unique approach to how we move and get things done. And we are always looking to partnerships to get everything accomplished. I have shared some of the ideas we are focused on to address and challenges that are in our way. How can we innovate, find new sources of revenue to replace the property tax increase, and build the city of the future that is efficient, affordable, and welcoming to all? I invite you to join us on this journey. Collaboration and good relationships are the foundation of partnerships. There is a lot of brain power in this room, along with a can-do attitude that helps each of you get things done in your own businesses. Please share your ideas with us. As your mayor, I welcome your suggestions, your comments, and your questions. Together, we can meet the future with confidence, capability, and optimism. Thank you.